Thank you all for coming tonight. I wanted to give you a very quick CliffsNotes version of the TulsaNow organization so that you'd know just who you were dealing with here. TulsaNow was born when a group of people realized that they shared a common belief. They all believed that saving a building that was on the National Register of Historic Places, the Skelly Building, was more important to downtown than a parking space for 13 cars. We lost that fight, but we realized that our history and our irreplaceable architecture make Tulsa special, a city to be proud of. There's nothing else like it in the region, and when it comes to Art Deco architecture, we're famous worldwide. TulsaNow wants to keep it that way. We would prefer that this not become our official city slogan. But what does TulsaNow stand for? TulsaNow supports concepts like adaptive reuse of historic buildings rather than the short-sighted alternative. We encourage people to support local businesses and locally grown food rather than the generic national chains. We work to convince people that architecture matters. It really matters. We think that a city should be walkable, bikeable, provide working mass transit. It should be attractive and human-scaled, basically people-friendly, rather than a place suitable only for cars. Our mission is to make Tulsa the most livable, sustainable, and vibrant city in the Western Hemisphere. Impossible, you say? All it takes are everyday citizens with the right attitude, making choices each day to make it happen. That means all of us working together. That's why TulsaNow helps get people involved. We help educate the public as well as elected officials about important issues and topics that might otherwise fall through the cracks. We work with like-minded organizations to support concepts like sustainability, historic preservation, and smart growth. TulsaNow also works to make your voice heard. We organize meetings that help connect the people to the people in power, like the chance to participate in developing a new comprehensive plan, or the ability to ask questions about proposed developments, or this meeting tonight, which will make all of us more educated voters when it comes to the River Initiative. We also sponsor an online forum where people can post questions, comments, bright ideas, wacko ideas, and late-breaking news about most anything that happens in Tulsa. Occasionally, our online forum does make us question the ideal of free speech, but in general, it's a powerful tool that offers an inside look at Tulsa from the perspective of Tulsans. We will mention, however, that the views depicted on our online forum do not necessarily represent those of TulsaNow and its board of directors. Tonight, a different kind of forum, the old-fashioned public kind, maybe not quite that old. Still, grab your togas, get ready. Tonight we have two panelists from each side of the river debate. Our panelists may disagree about the river tax initiative, but they all agree on one thing. They all want what's best for Tulsa. So please show your respect, regardless of which side you're on. Having said that, I think we'd like to introduce we're going to do a coin toss to see who gets to do their presentation first, but I'm going to just kind of have you guys wave quickly to introduce. I'll say, you know, in this corner wearing purple shorts, and no, I don't know what color shorts he's wearing, actually. We've got, speaking on behalf of the pro side, we have Galen Pence, project manager for environmental services for NCOG previously. Now he's environmental manager for PMG. He was the project manager for phase 1 and 2 of the Arkansas River Master Plan and has many years of experience with the environmental issues surrounding the river. And I totally botched that because it was handwritten. Sorry about that. My fault. No, it was my writing. Also on the pro side, we have John Piercy, who, among other things, developed the financing package for Vision 2025 and was project manager for the Zinc Lake and Dam project. Did I get that right? On the opposing side, we have Tulsa native Colin Tawney, who's on the Centennial Commission for the Time Capsule at Veterans Park. We were interested to learn that his company is actually making the pressurized capsule for the time capsule, and that their company, I think, has a new slogan, and the slogan is, "Remember the Belvedere." And of course, many of you already know City Councilor John Eagleton from District 7. Councilor Eagleton served as the Assistant District Attorney under David Moss before starting his own law practice, but he also has a degree in accounting, and I think we're going to see some evidence of that possibly in some of his arguments tonight. I also want to thank OSU Tulsa for letting us use this auditorium tonight. We very much appreciate that. But I would also like to introduce our moderator tonight. We are lucky to have and he better stop talking. Ken, I'm about to talk about you. The ever-delightful, multilingual, multi-talented Renaissance man, the guy with the coolest ties and the best-smelling cologne in the city of Tulsa, Executive Director of the Arts and Humanities Council and TulsaNow board member, Mr. Ken Busby.
That's the most unusual introduction I've ever had.
I strive.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Okay. Well, I'm just thinking this through as I'm standing here looking at you. I guess we could do the coin toss first, and then just let whoever is selected come up, make their presentation, and then we'll move into the four seats and do the panel discussion, if that sounds good to everyone. So here we go. It is a 1976 commemorative $1 coin. Counselor, I'm going to let you call it. It is tails. So we will let our first speaker come forward. Thank you.
Into the microphone. What a concept. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming out tonight to share this wonderful project with us and to learn more about the Arkansas River Corridor Master Plan. I've been working on this for nearly 4 years, and I'm here to share with you the information that we have gained over that period of time. In the past 100 years or so, this river has undergone dramatic changes, including heavy industrialization and urban development, and all the impacts that go along with that. Many miles of the riverbanks and natural riparian habitat were disturbed and modified in the past to build an extensive system of levees to protect our civilization from devastating floods. The construction of Caw and Keystone dams and reservoirs provided enhanced flood protection and hydropower generation, but it has forever changed the flow regime of this Arkansas River in this segment. More recently, vast improvements to pollution sources along the river have resulted in significant water quality improvements. Through dozens of public meetings that were held during and after the development of the Arkansas River Corridor Master Plan, the public told us that the river is our greatest natural asset, and it needs to be improved. They wanted water in the river and many other improvements. To accomplish those objectives, the river must change somewhat again, and again for the better. Locally, and from the beginning of the development of the master plan, we have partnered with the Corps of Engineers 50-50 to develop the comprehensive master plan that will dramatically improve the water resources management and river environment below Keystone Dam. The Corps has utilized their best technical resources and managed a team of experienced consultants to prepare the master plan. It has been unanimously adopted as an element of the comprehensive plan for Tulsa County and the city of Tulsa. The city of Jinx and other communities are approaching that or pursuing that same goal. And now it is time to implement the plan intended by the plan as intended by the community leaders who approved and adopted it. We are in a critical stage of the process where we need to commit to complete the funding of the plan's implementation. When implemented, the plan and the projects included in the proposed river funding package will provide this region with a high-quality attraction and quality of life enhancer for decades of enjoyment by future generations and ourselves. This is a good plan, which has the support of the Corps of Engineers and local communities. It has been developed intentionally to be technically sound and implementable, and was developed with a great amount of input from key resource agencies and the general public. It has captured the support of many successful business leaders and families in our community, and has inspired them to pledge $117 million to implement many elements of the master plan and commit to their future upkeep. This is the most feasible river improvement plan that has been developed in decades, and we have a most wonderful opportunity right now to continue the momentum to get it implemented and financed in only 7 years or less. Similar to the way that the Corps of Engineers and local taxpayers transformed the ditches in Oklahoma City into vibrant development and activity centers, attracted new quality jobs to that region, and created a source of community pride in those flat redlands, the Arkansas River Corridor Master Plan, developed in partnership with the Corps of Engineers here, will also transform our neglected but beloved river into a source of pride, quality, and prosperity for Green Country, our region. I think we have a few minutes. John, would you like to wrap up?
How much time do I have left? How many? 6? Great. I would concur in that Tulsa's greatest asset is the Arkansas River. And that view stretches back 25 years to the first low water dam that was financed and constructed on the Arkansas River under then Mayor Jim Inhofe. That project faced similar opposition as we're seeing today. It was also a public-private partnership, which, if you look back at what's happened in the last 25 years since that dam was built, as Jim Inhofe said, nothing has happened. And the reason that nothing has happened on the Arkansas River in the past 25 years, with minor exceptions, is there's been no public investment in the development of the river. Today's plan is really a $400 million plan. And I've had the opportunity over the last 6 months to watch the private sector step up, much in the way they did 25 years ago, and say, we'll give back to this community through investing in the river. And I've also seen that interest grow from an initial budget of $25 million in private donations to now where it's over 113. So if you think about this program not as a $280 million sales tax driven program, but a $400 million development of the Arkansas River, for which the public sector is being asked to put up 70%. The 70% they're asked to put up comes in a unique sales tax in several respects. The first is that it sunsets, which is not something we've seen. It sunsets in 2 ways. One is it either lasts 7 years if it takes all the money collected during that 7-year period to pay for the projects, or if the projects are finished earlier and with less money than the tax ends, or if we get the $50 million or so that has been requested, although we may, none of us live long enough to see the $50 million come out of the federal government, but that would shorten the life of the program as well. There's a couple other points about this particular financing that's unusual, is that there are 2 types of rebates. If you're over 65, you qualify automatically as a household for a $25 rebate. All senior citizens, no matter what your income level is. The second feature is there's also a provision for a low and moderate income rebate of $25, which applies to families who file under the state tax provisions making $50,000 or less. And then if you're a single individual making $20,000 or less. So if you're a senior citizen and you only spend $500 a month on sales taxed items, this program costs you nothing. If you spend obviously more than that, you nevertheless have the benefit of a rebate. And the final point is that most people don't think about is that Tulsa County is a regional shopping center, and as such 15 to 20% of all sales tax collected in Tulsa County come from out-of-county residents. So now you're looking at an additional $40 million which will be paid for by out-of-county residents. Thank you.
Yes, she's keeping time for you, so that's good.
Well, I'm honored to be here. I seem to be the only person that's not an elected politician or doesn't have something directly to do with the campaign, so I feel it's good that they're seeking individual input from within the community on this. I was asked to come in and speak as one of the antis on this river tax. So the first couple of comments that I'm going to make will probably surprise you. I am for river development, and I'm not against paying for the betterment of the Tulsa community. However, this is what I am against, is I'm against hurried campaigns which are full of hyperbole and incredibly speculative economic impact numbers, incomplete plans that we don't know exactly what we're getting in the plan. I personally work in an industry which functions like many others in this town. I usually cannot ask a company for a purchase order until they know every detail, every itemized cost, every potential pitfall, whether it's a $250,000 project or a $10,000 project. After, and only after, all the realistic details are known, do I ask for their business. That's called a mutual trust. You're being asked to essentially give a blank purchase order to an authority which up till now has not existed. This campaign is too full of maybes, possiblies, could-bes at this point. People I've talked to say they want to vote for this because it's the best chance we have to develop the river. Just 1 year ago, we were told by the stakeholders that was our best opportunity to develop the river. I do like the preliminary information which has come out of this to this point, but that's the catch. What we're voting on October 9th is still preliminary and speculative. We're seeing things in the Tulsa world stated like unnamed observers and economists who have raised the economic impact from $2.8 billion now to $3.5 billion. Now the upshot is that may even be conservative. We don't know who these people are that are putting forth the numbers, but it sounds good. To me, it sounds like that the people on the yes side aren't getting quite the poll numbers that they think they need to make this pass, so they're going to keep raising the ante until everybody buys in and says, oh, well, we'll get $5 billion out of this. Here's the dream. $3.5 million for less than 1/2 of a penny. Here's the reality. Some of the same players are also involved in an arena that's gone over budget, a series of low water dams which were promised in your Vision 2025 ballot and was also promised in the proposition. Nowhere in either one of those did it say that that was contingent upon federal funding. Go back and reread it. That is available information. We did not get what we were promised. We're asking to pay again. I've seen progressively in the 41 years that I've lived in Tulsa that we are getting fewer services that are normally expected out of municipal government, but we are getting a bigger municipal government. I view a referendum ballot like this as a legal contract between a government and its constituents. Are you willing to sign a contract which is poorly defined? I think a good attorney would tell you not to do it. We need better definitions. Some of the particular areas which I believe are lacking at this point is explaining the sales tax projections. If there's not a growth in the population in Tulsa that results of this, if Tulsa does not become a destination city, all we do is we shift the sales tax collection points from one part of the city to the other. It's called a cannibalistic tax. It adds nothing to the tax base. This has to become a destination in order for this to raise the kind of money that now they're saying the river's going to fix the streets. It keeps getting better. And another issue that I'd be interested to hear from the pro side is, will the sales tax be exempted on the building materials for the project? Because that was another area that cited as potential for economic growth is the actual construction. Some of the areas that I've always thought of as being essential government services in a municipal government is clean water, passable roads, sewage removal, trash removal, public safety, which is fire, ambulance, police. But I don't believe that real estate brokerage falls into the category of essential government services, which is one of the major points of this, to create this authority to purchase private property and then broker it to other private entities. That is not an essential government service. This is something that can be accomplished between private sellers, private buyers, right now without the city having to get involved. There's too many unknowns. Let's sit back, vote no. Let them bring it back to us in a year, and then we can vote yes when we know exactly what all the details and pitfalls are. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Eagleton. Thank you for having me. I've got 4 minutes, so I'm going to go very fast, and I'll probably talk faster than I should. First, let me say the river plan, the INCOG plan on steroids, I refer to it as the Kaiser plan, is a great idea. I endorse it and support it. What I don't like about it is the accompanying tax increase. Many people, many great minds over the years have opposed tax increases. Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill said it best, there's no such thing as a good tax. Ronald Reagan said it in his own way, for a nation to, no nation ever taxed itself into prosperity. Many wise people throughout the years have opposed tax increase. Justice Marshall once opined, the power to tax involves necessarily the power to destroy because there is a limit beyond which no institution and no property can bear taxation. They say it's just 0.4%, less than a nickel on a dollar. But it's a nickel on dollar stacked on top of what we're already paying. If you overtax the sales tax base, you will not get a diminishing return. You will collapse the sales tax base. We've heard how the city of Tulsa doesn't keep up with police, doesn't keep up with streets. That's because our income stream, a derivative of sales tax in the city of Tulsa, has not kept up with inflation. Retail has moved to the suburbs. The city of Tulsa has obligations it can't beat or meet. I've looked at the numbers since '95. Every year, our income stream, our operational budget is less than the core rate of inflation. For the operational year 07-08, operational expenses for the city of Tulsa grew at 0.9%. Core inflation was 2.7%. Eventually, we will get to the point where the lack of the street repair and the lack of police will drive many people with money to other places. If you increase the sales tax, you're chopping away at the City of Tulsa's sales tax base. I believe, and many people concur with me, that the county has a sufficient resource stream to build the river now without raising taxes now. By my computations, Vision 2025 will raise approximately $199 million more than expenses. Mr. Piercy's numbers have it at $80 million. But then he sent me an email. In his email, he advised me that the funding for the $575 million capital program, which includes the $45 million for the arena, a few paragraphs down, he tells me the estimated sales tax revenue that he's using is $745 million. $745 million minus $575 million equals $170 million. I propose, very simply, create a new tax, have it take hold in June of 2017, stick it out for as long as it takes, monetize that income stream today, build the river today. When Vision 2025 projects are paid for, harness that income stream to pay off the bonds early. We can do the river now. We can do it without a tax increase. In addition to Vision 2025, I've been informed the Fortifix is running approximately $199 million long. Support river development, oppose the tax.
Start our Q&A. I'll go this way. Okay, very good. That's very nice of you. Good job. Now that we've had a chance to hear from our speakers, we're going to now go into a Q&A period. You have been given cards out at the entrance, and there will also be cards passed around through here. I have those questions. We also have some prepared questions that we will go through that we have provided to the panelists in advance so that they would have time to consider their answers, because this forum is about not how well a panelist can think on his feet, but how well the answers are that he provides. We're going to give panelists 2 minutes to answer each question, and then our lovely timekeeper will remind you of that. And we may take occasional flash polls of our audience present this evening with fun little questions designed to make you smile, I guess, or at least think about it. Actually, let's just practice a flash poll right now, just for the heck of it. Raise your hand if you have walked, biked, or jogged on the river trails in the past week. During the past month? Have you driven down Riverside Drive in the last 7 days? All right. Gee, I wonder why you all are here tonight. Okay. We could ask that question too. Okay. Okay, let's start with one of our prepared questions. I guess, based on the way this is written, this is going to those opposing. But everyone can have a chance to answer. So we'll start with the opposing side, since it's more directed toward you. Oklahoma's state and local tax burden is among the nation's lowest. Only 5 states rank lower than Oklahoma, and it shows. Given this statistic, how can you oppose a temporary tax that would be supplemented by $117 million in private donations for capital improvements that would result in long-term economic benefits for Tulsa County?
Great question. The state of Oklahoma is 46th in tax expense, but this is a tax for Tulsa County. Tulsa County, if you pull it out and compare it to the 50 states, ranks 20th. If you pull the city of Jenks out, it comes in 13th. Tulsa is the most overtaxed city that I'm aware of. Our sales tax rate keeps going higher. We're driving retail away. Our millage rate in Tulsa County is $120 per thousand. Our millage rate in Jenks is $132. Then the state average is $97. Tulsa is overtaxed.
Anyone else wish to comment?
Oh, we get the comment as well?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
It's a free exchange of ideas.
Okay.
It's a democracy of some sorts. And it's a republic, you're right. Sorry. Okay, we're not debating that tonight. I'm sorry. Never mind. Everybody gets a chance to speak.
I think the state statistics also include local burdens, and I noticed it's interesting, one of the Vote No email or websites is saying, comparing us to New York City, when in fact the city of Tulsa apparently has a higher sales tax rate than the sales tax rate is in New York City. They just neglected to mention that the city of New York City has a 15% income tax rate on residents who work and live in the city of New York City. And I think if you compare standards of living, income, and jobs, there's a direct correlation between higher taxes and higher standards of living, job creation, and so forth. The idea that the state of Oklahoma has high taxes suggests that you should drive around and look at the conditions of streets, bridges throughout the state of Oklahoma and ask the question, we really are getting what we pay for.
Sure.
Statement, please. As it relates to, is this on?
It doesn't sound like it.
Not hot, okay. As it relates to New York City having a personal income tax, one of the reasons for that, why municipalities have adopted that, is because high sales tax is a deterrent to tourism and convention business. They will pick other areas where they're not spending as much of their discretionary purchases on tax. And that's one of the reasons why cities like New York City do have a personal income tax.
And I would also suggest you compare the hotel motel room tax in New York City with that of the city of Tulsa.
Hey, can I make a suggestion? Why don't we do 2 minutes to answer and 1 minute for any
Rebuttal?
rebuttal?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Anyone else want to? You got about 45 seconds left on a rebuttal. Anyone else want to?
For the pro or the con?
Well, let's see. There's 45 on that side, and you probably got 45 too. So if you've got something else you'd like to add, just feel free.
I'll save it. Just move on.
Okay. Let's try one on the pro side for a moment. Taxpayers in the city of Tulsa will shoulder 70% of the costs of this initiative, but only 1/3 of the people on the oversight committee will represent Tulsa's interests. How can we ensure that Tulsa taxpayers will have a voice going forward?
There are 9 members on that proposed authority, 9 proposed members, 3 of which are appointed by first the mayor of the city, and then I think she has 2 appointments. If you say that the county commissioners don't represent their constituents in the city of Tulsa, I guess you would exclude those. But nevertheless, the chairman of the River Parks Authority also picks one, so I think it's hard to imagine a 1/3 representation, number one, and number two is that assumes that the other members of the authority would operate in bad faith against the city of Tulsa, which I just don't believe the history suggests they would do that.
Rebuttal?
Thank you. The actual number is 74% of the sales tax will be generated within the city of Tulsa. The residue will come from the outlying communities and the unincorporated properties. Yes, the city of Tulsa should have 3/4 of the representation on the board, in my way of looking at it. I agree the county commissioners will represent their constituents and do so in good faith. I inure no ill motives on the county commissioners' part, but the city of Tulsa, the government of Tulsa, the steward of the police force, the steward of your road, should have a greater say in how these monies are ultimately spent. Thank you.
Here's a question for everyone, so we'll just open it up, and whoever jumps on the microphone first. Would you allow your child or mother to swim in the Arkansas River today? And depending upon your answer, how will the future be different for our river?
I'll answer that. Because
Okay.
this plan does not advocate swimming in the Arkansas River, never has. We have the water quality standards for the Arkansas River protected for that use, but they have never been assigned to the river because not of water quality issues, but because of safety issues in the river. This plan does advocate recreation in boats on the river through a whitewater amenity that is planned, but no swimming. We have plenty of swimming pools and safe places to swim, not in the river. No, I would not encourage any of my family members to swim in the river, nor you, for that matter.
I have swum in the Arkansas River as a child. I used to go out on the sandbars when the water was low and with a machete cut gars in half. I have walked at the river parks at about 21st Street. There's a giant stormwater pipe that goes all the way downtown. I've walked it as a child. I have two boys. When we're at river parks, I can't keep them out of the river. I know it's not recommended, but it was a lot dirtier when I was a child, and people say I've turned out okay. The water is brown, and certain times the water has a certain odor to it, but it's still a river that I love.
If the public does not build the low water dams, will private developers? That can be to anybody.
Well, the one example is the zinc dam was a public-private partnership that did not require a tax. This was a great partnership between a city and a charitable group. This is also something that I've really wanted to make a point of, is that there are developers that will provide commercial development along the river with or without this tax package. We have water between 11th Street and 21st Street, as evidenced, all summer long and in many other summers, not just this monsoon season. It's there.
I don't think you'll ever see a $30 million dam built on the Arkansas River, $27 to $30 million dam by private individuals. That's the beauty of this plan, is that the typical infrastructure that's supported by the public sector is being paid for by them, and we're using the private donations for the development along the river. The other part of it is the development on the river. What you see now is what you get without public investment. And I think the development on the river can certainly be substantially improved by the public investments, because you do have a way of influencing the type of development and not have something developed that backs up to the river, which is a history of our community, as opposed to fronting the river.
Out of the I believe it's 117 million so far that's contributed privately, they've cited two $30 million low water dams, stream bank improvements. I haven't really seen enough itemization in what they're proposing to show me that we have a need for $284 million in public tax money. I've not seen that justification to this point.
Obviously, he doesn't read the Tulsa World, because it listed it in detail, each and every project that was to be funded by public funds.
All righty then. An odor runs through it. How is the city going to adequately address our air quality with these new projects?
Well, the city is addressing their source of air quality issues in terms of odors along the river. The city of Tulsa just recently finished with a consultant team locally an odor control study of the Southside Wastewater Treatment Plant and the facilities that serve that, the one at 71st, the biosolids facility, the flow equalization basin on the west bank, and many of the manholes and junction boxes on both sides of the river, east and west. And they found significant odor problems with their facilities. Needless to say, that's to be expected with wastewater. It does generate odors. They do have some odor control facilities on some of those units, and they plan to, no doubt, build millions more to reduce the odors. Their plan estimated that they could, with $30 to $50 million worth of investment, reduce the odors to about a 95% effectiveness rate at the wastewater plants. You've recently heard about the refineries investing hundreds of millions of dollars into their facilities, mainly to remove sulfur from their crude to meet EPA's low sulfur diesel and gasoline requirements. That's going to remove the most common odor-causing element, if you will, sulfur, from their waste stream, turn it into elemental sulfur, and we should see significant odor reductions from the refineries. And both refineries are going to be doing that. Sunoco told me that we should expect that by no later than 2013. So odors are being addressed. It's a long process, an expensive process to clean up the wastewater and the odors generated by our contributions to that plant, as well as the industry on the West Bank, and that's not a new problem. But, you know, the odor complaints that have been registered that they documented through their study show a far reduction from what we have had in the past there, which we used to hear a lot in the media about odor problems, which we don't anymore. We are going to fix that.
Okay, I really do read the Tulsa World. There was an article a couple of weeks back, and this has stirred some concern amongst friends of mine and in my own mind, is that remediation to total mitigation of the odors from the sewage plant has been listed as being anywhere from $30 million to $500 million. This was in the Tulsa World story. The concern is, amongst myself and some of my contemporaries, is that this could become a bottomless tax that we have for the next 30 years trying to remediate the stench along the river and trying to improve the odor problem. Councilor Eagleton.
For $285 billion, we can get a giant scented candle, or we could put it in bottles, call it perfume, and sell it to the French.
I will take umbrage with a tax on the French.
Wait.
But
I want to add one other thing. Just as John said how much he loved the river and how much he's been involved in the river, you know, we've heard this odor argument that somehow the odor is going to stop development on the river. And I would suggest that you go over and look at the Westport apartments, which are built between 11th and 21st Street. They said you couldn't do that because the stink would be just too much. And you know what? Those 800 plus units are one of the most successful apartment complexes in this city. And somehow those people have survived 20 years of odor. So I think the odor issue is just like the issue of the low water dams were put in the Vision 2025 issue. If you want to vote against the tax, vote against the tax. Don't create a straw man to use to vote against the tax.
okay. I am on a fixed income. I am already taxed on food, gas, phone, electric, property. How can you justify raising our taxes again? I will have to move out and go somewhere where taxes are not as high. Who would like to take that one first?
I think I tried to answer that. If you are on a fixed income, depending on the level of the income, your tax burden will be mitigated and to some extent eliminated if you get on a website and apply for a rebate, which the county treasurer enjoys sending out annually to people that are over 65 or people making $50,000 or less as a family. And if you make $50,000 or less, the impact on you will be about $100. You can reduce it by $25. So you're talking about a $75 implication to you on an annual basis.
Tulsa is overtaxed. We pay more taxes than is needed to support our governance. It is shown by the overages received by the vision tax and the fortifix tax. Tulsans should not be paying more tax. I was in law school when the first rebate for a sales tax went out. Everybody in my law school class went, with the exception of me, went down and made application for their money, even though some of them had no need for it whatsoever. They simply falsified the application to get the money. The fact that Tulsa is overtaxed has been agreed to by many people in public places. According to the Tulsa World in February 6, 2007, Commissioner Smoligo said, the commissioners believe in solid conservative economic principles, that when you raise taxes, you hamper commerce and industry. I agree with him there. On February 27, 2000, Commissioner Miller, while running for a different office, said, under no circumstances should sales tax exceed current levels. They exceed those levels today. Sales tax is too high. It's chopping away at our sales tax base. It makes it impossible for the city of Tulsa to make ends meet. When you dissipate the tax base, you will get to a point where it collapses, and the city of Tulsa will not be able to field the necessary police officers or to fix the potholes. This tax may not push us to the tipping point, but it's a step in the wrong direction.
For both sides, please address what low water dams were promised by Vision 2025 and what happened to them. How can we be assured that what we're being promised this time will be delivered?
Since I've been studying the low water dams for the past several years, the same low water dams, the two top tier 1 low water dams, one at Sand Springs and one at Jinx, is what is being proposed to be constructed with this additional funding package. Vision 2025 allocated $5.6 million to construct 2 low water dams that cost $27 million apiece. I am an engineer, and I did take math, and I bet you all had some math too in your schooling, and you know that $5.6 million, even that 5.6 was predicated on getting $2 federal funds for every dollar of that 5.6 million. So we don't even have enough money, if the federal funds would have been allocated to this project, to build even one of the low water dams. The estimates in Vision 2025 came before the river study, and they were based on the existing zinc dam, which cost $8 million, roughly. And I can show that documentation and also show the description of the vision packages that went along with the resolution, which you should read in your backup as you study this package, that identifies specifically that it was intended to be funded matched by federal funds. Always has been, and that is still the case. We still want and need the federal match, but we cannot wait on it. Katrina and Rita really killed our opportunities to get Senator Inhofe's money whenever we needed it, and we are still working to get that. It will never be cheaper or better to build these low water dams than now. If we wait longer, it will undoubtedly cost us more to build them, and will cost us as taxpayers more, or we will do without. These dams and the money in Vision 2025 will be used in addition to new monies, whatever that source might be, eventually to build these 2 low water dams.
Thank you. Allow me to quote my good friend Michael Bates from his July 25, 2007 posting on his webpage. When Tulsa County voters approved Proposition 4 for Vision 2025 sales tax, they approved $9.5 million to pay for the following items spelled out very specifically in the ballot resolution passed by Tulsa County Commissioners. And I've confirmed the accuracy of these quotes. Quote, construct 2 low water dams in the Arkansas River, locations of which will be determined by the Arkansas River Corridor Plan, $5.6 million. Quote, Zinc Lake Shoreline Beautification, $1.8 million. Quote, design and construct Zinc Lake upstream catch basin and silt removal, $2.1 million. 2 low water dams and Zinc Lake rehab have been promised by the county commissioners to the voters when they approved it. The Vision 2025 tax has sufficient revenue to keep that promise. This is a raid on the sales tax base for the city of Tulsa.
Well said. I was directed, as I was trying to find where it was ever brought up, that this was all contingent on matching funds from the federal government, I had to be directed to a Tulsa World article in 2003 with Bob Dick saying that they had to have the federal funding. I'm sorry, but the Tulsa World does not have a legal contract with the constituents to provide low water dams. I shouldn't have to look there for it. That's why I'm saying we need to look close at the ballot and see what is and is not promised.
This documentation has been around ever since Vision 2025 was conceived. It is very simple in this document that the low water dams were expected to have matching funds. And come on, take face value, 5.6 million available in Vision. How are we going to stretch that to make a $27 million dam?
Each.
Today.
It was a beginning funding and a matching funding, but if you wait long enough, probably maybe as early as next week, John Eagleton's surplus numbers for Vision 2025, which are now at 170 to 190, are probably going to be in the neighborhood of 300 million. And as has been explained over and over, there is no surplus in the Vision 2025 program. There may be a surplus, but that surplus will be sometimes towards the end of the 2017 year. And if you want to wait, which is the tactic of most people who have been opposed to the river, let's wait and something will happen in the future.
Okay. Thank you. Time on that. And now a rebuttal.
Thank you. July 23rd, 2003, Commissioner Dick is quoted as saying, "I think the worst thing we could do is to promise you're going to build something and then not have enough money to build it." They incorporated into the Vision 2025 proposal an intentional underestimating or underprojection of the income stream so they can complete all the tasks they had promised. Nowhere in the proposition was matching funds a requirement. Nowhere in what you voted for in 2003 was an expectation that somebody would come in here and build the river for us. It is a simple canard in an attempt to bill you twice for the same services. Thank you.
Moving on. Good discussion. Dr. Piercy, as an economist and someone who knows a little about urban planning, could you talk about the nexus between great cities and rivers?
Tell me a great city that doesn't have a river, that hasn't developed the river. You know, I was a proponent, unfortunately, of the channels. And one of the reasons that I supported that was is the way they were going to treat the banks, because if you've ever been to London, and I was fortunate in the twilight of my life to go to London, you walk up and it's a thrill to be able to look down at a river, even though the river is pitch black because of the type of river it is. I think it's an asset that's far superior to bringing Boeing to Tulsa, and the voters of Tulsa voted to pay the tax for Boeing. And the nice thing about it is that if we do this, we won't see the river get up and leave like Boeing may or may not do in the future. And so I think this is a much greater investment. And I may not live to see it, but I've got two 16-year-old grandsons who I would like to see stay in Tulsa as opposed to leaving for Dallas or Houston, where higher paying, better job opportunities are. And if you look at what's happened to us over the last 20 years, we have lost high paying jobs in this community, and we have substituted call centers that pay a lot less than the jobs we've lost. So we're not replacing the jobs, and one of the reasons is this community is becoming less competitive with the other communities that it competes against.
Okay. Thank you. Rebuttal?
I I agree. The river needs to be developed. There are differing ideas. I think a lot of people in Tulsa see Oklahoma City's canal, San Antonio's canal, as being successful examples of river development, using a waterway to create interest, creating public gathering spaces, commercial development. And one of my favorite places is the new river development in Fort Lauderdale. It's wonderful. The one thing these all have in common is a narrow channel that you can walk across a short bridge. What we're talking about is a little bit different. There are other types of tributary development that I probably shouldn't lead us off into tonight that are worth looking into. However, though, from what I'm hearing of the description of the commercial development that we'll have will be restaurants, retail. These don't, except for the management positions, really pay vastly much more, and in some cases less than call center jobs do, which is about $9 or $10 an hour. I'm trying to figure out what great economic development comes out of this that is actually meaningful, high-paying jobs like union jobs we would have had at Boeing.
May I have the residue of time? What puts Tulsa on the map is a highly skilled workforce that can build heat exchanger, pressure valves, oil field equipment. What puts Tulsa on the map is a high-skilled workforce that can put a wing of an airplane together and make it work. What puts Tulsa on the map is the infrastructure for business and industry. People will say that Tulsa will never be a tourist destination. I don't buy that. I believe Tulsa is a tourist destination for some people. But what pays the bills, what makes things work, is when we put our money into infrastructure, police, streets, water, and aid the industry as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taney, in reference to a comment that you made earlier, are you suggesting that a city income tax is preferable to this sales tax?
No, not at all. No, my comment was entirely about a high sales tax as a disincentive for convention business and tourism.
May I have the residue of time?
Sure, go ahead.
And a temporary tax will wind up being as temporary as the toll on the Turner Turnpike.
Any comments?
I want to respond to that because when's the last time that you got to vote on a state of Oklahoma tax? And the nice thing about a tax locally is, and I've heard Dan Hicks say this until I'm red in the face, and I want to say no more Dan Hicks, is that a temporary tax is never temporary. Yes, it is. What happens is the people have to go back to the polls and say, we'll extend the tax or we won't. And fortunately for us, people in this community have voted for the tax and they've extended it. But nevertheless, it is legally expiring. And I'm proud of the people who vote to extend them, because otherwise we wouldn't have what we have today without the third penny sales tax, and we wouldn't have what we have today without 4 to fix. And this idea that a 2/12 tax for 5 years on a county basis can generate $199 million that John is claiming it would do makes me wonder where he got his accounting degree.
Okay, let's not get personal here. I can't even remember who said this now, so let me just try to get through this one. It sounds like you said the dam construction estimate, no pun intended, was made prior to the completion of the study that resulted in the actual dam cost. Again, no pun intended. With that said, how can we be sure that the estimated costs that are being presented won't increase after further study?
Well, you know, that's rather rhetorical as well, in that these estimates, the current estimates that this is based on, are based on Engineering News Record inflationary figures. They do project out to future values. The same guarantee applies to your gas rate for this winter. How do you know it will stay the same? That we don't, but we have much greater confidence in the estimates. They have been reviewed by the Corps of Engineers, by the Tennessee Valley Authority, and now by a local engineering firm, just to answer that very question: are these adequate funds to build these low water dams? All three of those have indicated yes. Our consultants in the Phase 3 years ago estimated that the low water dams were around 19 million, 22, 23 with a pedestrian bridge. They all have pedestrian bridge. Those have been inflated to account for increase in concrete and steel and other prices that have affected construction prices worldwide. This is not just a Tulsa phenomenon that construction prices have gone up and will continue to. If you're familiar at all with the construction industry, you know that that is not just U.S. wide, it is worldwide. It is a global economy, and we are paying the price for the competition abroad. These estimates are the best available, and yes, they are adequate to build these facilities.
No response. The mere question is its own answer.
Oklahoma City has Bricktown. Jenks has the Riverwalk. Both have a huge draw to the respective cities. How do you plan to attract people to our river, as it appears we lost a huge opportunity when the PGA was in town?
We lost a huge, I don't understand.
In other words, if I'm reading it right, if I understand, I think it's because the river wasn't more developed that we had a PGA here that could have done more if we'd had the river more fully developed.
How many people, I used to live in Oklahoma City, and 15 years ago, how many people have driven around what Bricktown used to be and what Bricktown is today? And then ask yourself, well, they didn't raise taxes in Oklahoma City. That was all done by the private sector. None of that was done by public money. Well, that's not true. The MAPS program, which has been extremely successful, was funded by sales tax. The advantage that Oklahoma City has that Tulsa doesn't is that virtually all of Oklahoma County is in the city of Tulsa. I mean, the city of Oklahoma City. And so you don't have the advantage that Tulsa County has. And when John talks about the declining tax base, that's why, in my view, a county tax for this project is far superior to the city of Tulsa tax, simply because those communities starts about, I don't know, 71st, 81st, and drive down Memorial, drive down, it's all going that way. And as an old city development director, I like this plan because we're reinvesting in the heart of what makes this region grow, and the development that's going to occur potentially on the West Bank between 11th and 21st Street is a tremendous opportunity for this city, because we'll have 100 acres that we can redevelop for mixed-use development that, in my view, will attract the economic base back to Tulsa.
And that's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
At last, we find something we can agree upon. If this is to go forward, it should be a county-wide tax because it will benefit the entire county. After Oklahoma City passed the tax increase for MAPS that gave it the ditch filled with water, their tax rate was lower than the sales tax rate is currently in Tulsa County. They did not chop away at their sales tax base the way this additional tax on top of our sales tax would. The ditch filled with water in Oklahoma City works because it's walkable, it's on a human scale, it's in close proximity to old buildings that can be used for or reused for restaurants, nightclubs, shopping, accessible, less expensive retail. The Arkansas River is not to human scale. It's not walkable. It is not the type of draw that people are going to say, let's go down to the river and watch the paddle boats go by. It is nice to look at. I would like it to see it filled with water, but to assume it's going to make the Arkansas corridor into Bricktown is a broad assumption. Tulsa has wonderful resources. we have the Brady District, we have Cherry Street, we have Brookside. We have nice old buildings where nightlife, young people can go and have fun. If we had harnessed the private sector in those arenas, the desire for young people to stay here would go up. But what young people really want is a job and the opportunity to meet some other young person with whom they have similar interests. The river development may be a step in the right direction, but a job with a quality company is a giant leap in the right direction.
It's time for a quick poll. All right. How many people have been to Bricktown? How many people have been more than once? More than twice? More than 5 times? Interesting. I'm just the moderator. I just, do these things. All of our panelists have said they are for river development. But how do we create development that is truly green in nature and forward-thinking, not just development for development's sake? I see one person reaching for it. All right.
Oh, I'll start that one.
All right.
Thank you. The reason that the Corps of Engineers is involved and has been from the beginning of developing the plan is to improve the environment of the Arkansas River and undo some of the harm that was done by their projects upstream, which benefit us greatly, specifically Caw and Keystone reservoirs and dams. The flow regime of the river has changed dramatically after those dams were constructed, obviously. Went from a free-flowing, frequent flooding, but also frequent low-flow stream to a stream that is, most of the time its flow is either governed by releases for flood control after they've stored a lot of runoff like they did this last year, or for hydropower generation, which is operated by the Southwest Power Administration and really adversely affects the flow regime in our summer periods. The flow of a normal prairie river would not be, as we see today, the 12,000 CFS versus 0, all in one day, all 5 days a week, and then have nothing on the weekends. This plan builds infrastructure that will capture and smooth that flow at Sand Springs and provide a steady flow to improve water quality in the environment. It also includes a tremendous amount of bank stabilization, environmental improvements of habitat. Once again, that is what the Corps is involved with. That's what the federal monies would be used for if we get those, and those have to be matched still dollar for dollar by local funds, which we don't have enough of yet. So this is a green plan in terms of what we're doing in the river. The Corps of Engineers and their environmentalists and our advisory committee that has studied this over the years, for the most part, agree with that, and that is our primary purpose, and the details of how much of that we do will be a issue for the detailed design and the permitting process, which is the very next step of this study. If we want to save time and money, we will continue this momentum and the project.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
Can I just ask a very quick question of Mr. Pence? When will those studies and when will those be completed? And then I guess the design build aspect, when is that anticipated to be completed?
The process that one would normally go through in a development, if you will, of this magnitude is that you develop your concept first, which we have done soundly in the Corridor Master Plan. Then you provide your funding to make sure that you can build your project, and we have cost estimates for that, before you embark on a detailed design without funding to build. Since this is, say, $50, $60 million.
Pardon me, I hate to step on you. I just wanted a time frame. What's a time frame of it? Is it real simple?
Real simple?
A year,
okay.
2
If
years?
we start design immediately or very soon, you would have about a year for design, a year and a half for permitting that goes concurrently with design, a year or thereabouts for construction. As little as 3 years to 5 years, these could be completed and the low water dams would be built and the river would be improved. If we go forward.
Thank you.
Do I have any time left? Or do you have any idea if I have?
Yes, you have time because he asked the question, so go ahead.
I have studied the Kaiser plan, which is the NCOG plan on steroids, at length for green issues, and there are many things about it that I like, and there's some things about it I don't like, but the things about it that I like would be the greening of the interdispersal loop, the accessing to Turkey Mountain, the greening up of Riverside Drive, and as I understand it, there's a current technology allows us to build low water dams that will allow the stripers to migrate up and down with greater ease, which would, I think, aid the river considerably. I've been told that the lease terns will have adequate nesting or equivalent nesting when we're done with these low water dams. Obviously, there's more that can be done, but I'm grateful that the organizer of this plan have put together some green attributes, and I applaud them for that.
This taxing,
May I add one thing?
one thing.
Okay. You know, public sector projects are very difficult to deal with the question of why don't you know the final cost? Because, for example, on this project, my guess is that you're going to spend, of the $282 million, you may spend $10 million on engineering, $20 million on engineering, $28 million on engineering. And the problem is that you never have a funding technique or the ability, so you have to do it on concept plans, which also means that, contrary to what Galen said, it's always a thrill when you open the project bid on a project, be it the City of Tulsa's street project, to hope that you're anywhere near what your engineers estimated. But that requires you to spend $28 million. So,
And we're wrapping this up quickly, right?
yes.
28 minutes.
Tell me a public that's willing to do a two-stage program where they vote to $28 million, and then if the engineering gets done and you're all ready, you got the engineering done, then you vote the rest of the tax. So it's unrealistic to put a condition on the river plan that you don't put on the $500 million that the City of Tulsa or anybody else spends on public improvements.
Mr.
Would you like to
Moderator-
have
Mr. Moderator, may I have equivalent time to ramble incoherently without answering the question?
no, you may have time to answer any other pertinent questions. This tax includes a sunset clause, which leads to this question.
Did I ramble?
No.
Since the projected costs of the low water dams include a contingency amount, if the actual costs do run under the projected costs, will the tax expire sooner than expected, or will the money be used in other ways?
The commitment is that when all the projects are finished, the tax ends. So if you end up spending less on one project and it requires more on another, then you obviously take the excess money and move it to the other project, because the commitment to the voters is to do the projects, not the specific dollar amount.
Okay.
If I had confidence that commitment would be kept, I would sleep better at night. We had the same commitment on the toll roads. We had the same commitment on Vision 2025, the tax that now is projected to go to June of 2017. They now have a committee to decide what to do with the overages, despite being told when everything's paid for it'd be turned off, an informal commitment. If I believed in commitments like that, I, like I say, would sleep better at night. I don't hold my breath. There is a sunset clause that will turn it off at a point in time when the money is raised, but when the money is raised depends on how much you spend, and when you vote this in, you're basically saying go and get the project done, however much it costs.
The proposal before us mentions downtown connections to link people to the river. Denver Avenue is the obvious gateway between downtown, the arena, and the river, and it is currently suffering from an embarrassing amount of blight. Yet the proposal does not seem to indicate improvements to the Denver corridor as part of the linkage plan. Why?
Well, what is proposed for the linkages and the connections to downtown is to identify those. The master plan identified more potential connections to the river, and I'm sure you're aware of more than just Denver. In fact, for many of the linkages or vantage points from downtown, unless you're on one of the tall buildings, you can't even see the river from our urban streets in the downtown area. What we proposed to do, what was recommended in the master plan, was to make walkable corridors to the river, either Denver, Boulder, Southwest Boulevard, and there are others. This study, this proposal, that component, would study the best location and design that and then implement that. The intention there is to beautify and those corridors and to make them attractive and basically a self-guiding tour, if you will, that would take you to the river. That those exact locations were not identified in the master plan. They do need additional study, and that is part of this proposal.
That's great. I'd gladly vote for it a year from now if that's when we know what we're getting.
Councilor Eagleton, if you do want to develop the river now, as you say, and do so without a tax increase, what commitment can you make to the Tulsa people that you will follow through and now without a tax increase?
Read the question again, please.
If you do want to develop the river now, as you say, and do so without a tax increase, what commitment can you make to the people of Tulsa that you will follow through without the tax increase and develop the river now?
Developing the river now or later or at any time is beyond my power. I'm a city councilor. It would be the people who would vote it in and then essentially directed by the committee of 9 people. The only thing I have is my personal integrity. I've pledged to you what I propose. I've given my word that I would support it. And if that's not good enough, then I have nothing else to offer. I will tell you that I do consider myself a man of my word, and I would prefer to sever an appendage than to knowingly break my word.
All right. What will be done to utilize local minority contractors if this plan passes? And there's a subsequent question to it that I'm not exactly sure, but who stands to make money off this deal?
That's you. That's for me.
It's both on the same one. I'm just reading here.
You know, I hope everybody in Tulsa County makes money off this deal, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the economic development of this entire county, and to say, well, somehow you're not supposed to financially benefit from this development is interesting, to say the least. And I would also hope that all the builders who build it make money on it, because that's the business they're in, of building projects and getting a return on their invested capital. So, to my knowledge, not one of the members of the $117 million that is being given privately has any involvement, connection, or expectation that they'll make money from this project. Besides that, they already got more money than they need anyway.
Apparently so, and I think everybody does appreciate what the private donors are pledging. I think it's a wonderful gift. I think it's very well intentioned. And I don't think I've really heard anybody so far thank the stakeholders for at least getting discussion this far on the project. When it comes to the issue of construction, I believe a lot of people are aware that there's a certain House bill that goes into effect November 1st, and there are a lot of Hispanics that are leaving the city who may even be here necessarily legally, but due to a feeling that there's an inhospitable environment, are going to neighboring states, going back to Mexico, so we may well have a construction shortage. This is one area that I'm afraid of seeing, is that our construction costs may go up by a good deal, and I am aware that in city and county projects there's been more of a push to get documentation for workers, but that's one thing I do see going up. I do see bureaucrats that are going to be guaranteed jobs for an extra 7 years for certain, and you know that's part of the way the government works, but that gives them a vested interest in it above and beyond what my own benefits to a project like this is, and personally my company stands nothing to gain from it for the type of business that we do, but I'm saying as an individual there are gains to be had, but I'd like to know more of what those are, how that will personally impact myself and my kids in the future before I'm willing to say that I'll go along with this.
Many opponents to the river plan have said we should fix the streets first. However, voting no on the river does not free up any additional funding to fix the streets. Would you support an initiative to raise taxes to supplement the existing third penny sales tax for road maintenance, keeping in mind that in 2005, 80% of Oklahoma voters voted against increasing the gas tax to fund road and bridge repair?
I'm assuming that's directed for me.
It's for all of you, but yes.
In case you haven't gotten the message, I tend to oppose taxes. I do not at this time support raising the tax to augment the third penny. I personally believe the third penny has been mal-allocated for years. I would like to see getting back to the basics of infrastructure of streets and water for the third penny. Currently, we're buying fire trucks and helicopters, and then when they are depreciated out, we sell them and pour those proceeds into the operational budget of the city. I opposed that ordinance when it was voted on. I think it's wrong, and I believe the third penny should be for capital improvement assets like streets, like the Spavinaw water gravity flow pipeline maintenance, like keeping our infrastructure in shape for large industry and for skilled laborers. I do not at this time oppose a tax increase. Very pointedly, however, I have not signed the no tax pledge because I do understand there may come a time when a tax hike may become necessary. I just don't believe we've reached that point in time.
Yes, my point of concern as far as fixing the streets first or doing the river first, the only way that I've looked at it as being a possible negative is that all of a sudden we decide out of the new group that the mayor's put together to study the street problem, if they come to us after we've committed to this additional 0.4 of a penny, we may have to come back and try and get that for a vote, and people are going to say, no more money. Our threshold is 9% sales tax. We're not going to spend any more. I'm just worried about what that could do to the order of our priorities.
Gentlemen, any comment?
Historically, a large portion of the street improvements in the city, it's also been funded by property taxes. I would be surprised to see the city propose something different than a property tax initiative to fund streets. And the other point I would make is I don't think it's an either or. I think we can afford to do both. And again, I'm not on John's side about taxes.
Why is the 41st Street Bridge a pedestrian bridge instead of the automotive bridge called for in the Arkansas River Master Plan?
The pedestrian bridge, well, the master plan showed at 41st Street or suggested a vehicular bridge and a pedestrian bridge to serve or connect the west side to the east side. This package includes the pedestrian bridge only, does not preclude a vehicular bridge to be constructed there or in that general vicinity. The exact 41st Street isn't necessary to provide that connection, but it is not precluded for the future. There are several bridges in the River Corridor Master Plan that are listed, none of which are funded through this package. So building vehicular bridges is a different project, if you will, not a river project per se. It could be built with highway funds or other funds, not river development funds. Pedestrian bridges, on the other hand, support the activities that we're trying to promote along the river. So it makes sense in this package to build the first phase. The pedestrian bridges should be separate from the vehicular bridges to be friendly to pedestrians and cyclists. We have examples of where that wasn't done and where people don't like to walk on those or ride their bikes on those combined bridges. They are not friendly. This pedestrian bridge is, once again, funded through the river because that's what it supports.
Any comment?
Ride your bike across the pedestrian bridge at about 30th Street, and you will be by yourself without cars. As a child, I mailed money in to buy 1 square inch of that bridge when it was turned from a railroad trestle to a bike. I've supported river development my entire life. Ride your same bike at the 11th Street Bridge where you have cars zooming by, and you'll discover that being on the pedestrian bridge without cars is a far more enjoyable experience. I'm assuming why the crafters of this plan put in a pedestrian bridge to make it more attractive. It will, however, preclude an automotive bridge to connect West Tulsa at 41st Street to east side of the river at 41st Street, and to that extent it might impair our economic development going forward.
As we're approaching 8 o'clock, I want to take a minute to ask the audience if we want to keep going till 8:15, 8:30. Well, okay, great. We'll keep going. If you all are good, we're good. Well, I'm trying to do that, but some people are really adamant about wanting certain points underscored, so they write me these notes that I really need to know. So I don't know if people have come in late, maybe missed the answer, I don't know, but I'll try to do that. Here's one. Has anyone discussed with the city of Jinx how development along the river has increased or decreased the revenue generated for their city? Every time I go to the Riverwalk, I have difficulty finding parking, so obviously the development has brought people and consequently revenue to their city.
I don't have any specific information other than Jinx' rate of growth in sales tax has been substantially higher than most cities other than Owasso and Broken Arrow.
If I can follow up on that in our few seconds left. I think it's certainly one could assume that Jinx's income due to Riverwalk, the aquarium, the hotels, has been significant for Jinx. It has put them on the map. They took chances where other cities would not in this area, and they have benefited from that. They have embraced their river. They have established development guidelines that make sure that the development on the Jinx side is quality and basically in keeping with a good corridor development. They enforce that, and they are really the first ones in the region to have done that. And to their success is also their failure in that they have used up most of their river development corridor in Jinx with the developments they have, and they've been generating taxes from that all along. So they are now proposing, and you've heard of a development south of the aquarium. They will reclaim floodplain property or lands that have been purchased by developers and build a new mixed-use development in the tune of, we've heard, $100, $200, $300 million, and that depends on whether there's water in the river through these dams. Yes, they have bought the land. They will probably still develop portions of it, but all of the developments along the river, it's fair to say, have anticipated water in the river through the low water dams. Kings Landing, Riverwalk Crossing, all of the developments there that enjoy success today would enjoy much more success and fulfill their plans if these projects are built. They are expecting them to be built. We should not punish them for their success and not build these facilities.
Great question that will underscore the danger or peril this tax increase plays to the city of Tulsa. In 1996, Jinx had sales tax revenue of $1.4 million. In 2006, the year after river development, $3.9 million, an increase of 176%. The city of Tulsa in 1996 had sales tax revenue of $152 million. In 2006, $191 million, an increase of 26%. A decade-long period of time where sales tax revenue trailed inflation. The city of Tulsa, every day, every year, the ability to pay for police goes down. The ability to fix the roads goes down. This sales tax increase, 74% of which will come from the city of Tulsa, chops away or erodes the sales tax base that the city of Tulsa relies upon. The Riverwalk is a private venture. It was not created by a sales tax hike. It was not created by the government pouring millions and millions of dollars into the river. It was created by an entrepreneur that saw an infrastructure opportunity with a retail wraparound. He jumped on it and it worked. The same thing will work in Tulsa. We've had a dam at 30th and Riverside for a long, long time. How much retail do you find at Zinc Lake?
If it's short.
Short. You know, interesting thing about Jinx development, Riverside Drive, which was a project financed, I believe, by sales tax generated by the city of Tulsa. So to make the argument that somehow the Jinx development was all done with private money and there wasn't any public money, to me, kind of defies the idea that there was a great deal of public money put into that project. And which also demonstrates the value of having raw land on both sides of the river. Unfortunately, in the city of Tulsa, there is no raw land, and therefore, if you want development, it costs a lot more, it takes a lot more time. And if John wants to see development in the city of Tulsa, as we all do, then we have to make the public investments to bring those developments back to the city of Tulsa.
Thank you, Councilor.
The singular public-funded contribution to the Riverwalk was the life-saving boat owned by the fire station. That's it. Everything else was a private venture poured into land to make it work. Yes, the streets go to Riverwalk and they're paid for by taxpayer money. That's called infrastructure. Streets should exist for that reason. Streets do exist. Yes, the price of land in Tulsa is higher. The closer you get to Mecca, the higher the price goes up. That's just the way it is. I would love to see a Riverwalk development along the Arkansas River, but a low-water dam and channeling the water will not make it come. A good road and a good work base, good employee base will.
I've heard of many businesses having a hard time finding educated workers that will move here. Many of my friends won't move here because Tulsa does not offer the lifestyle that they wish to enjoy. These same people don't ever comment on the quality of our roads. What can the city of Tulsa do to change the perception of Tulsa?
Well, as I don't know, I'm probably the youngest person sitting on the panel. Still not spring chicken, but I've heard the argument thrown about that if we'll do the river, people will move here, they'll want to live here. There are other aspects of quality of life, and we do have, with private development that's going on in Brady Village, private renovation along Cherry Street, Brookside. The Riverwalk can actually be considered a part of the Tulsa area. It's just a short drive down Riverside. We've done things that have helped improve that quality of life. Vision 2025 has given higher education some wonderful projects that are helping to increase the education level. We've had some good incentives put forth by TCC and giving people right out of high school free tuition to get moving. Tulsa's on its way to developing and becoming more attractive, but one thing that we don't have and never will have, we don't have mountains, we don't have beaches, which are some things that young people want, and we do have to accept we are a landlocked prairie city. I think we're on the way with good improvements, and I think this could be a good improvement, but I don't honestly believe that we have enough details at this point. Don't be afraid to vote this down and let them bring it back to you when we know more about this and how it really will positively impact the area.
Well, voting it down now and not allowing us to continue the progress we're making will only cost us money in the future if you should ever choose to develop the river, which we've heard a lot that we haven't. And why haven't we? The answer is simple. It's because we haven't invested in this river to develop it. We've had plans in the 60s that were voted down by voters of Tulsa. That is why we only have one low-water dam and nothing else, no other infrastructure in the river. You look at cities in our region, even going up to Wichita on their same river system. Wichita, Fort Smith, Little Rock have all developed their river systems and have profited from that. We're one of the only big cities with a river in it that has done nothing with it. We have not added very much to our portfolio of attractions in Tulsa. This is one of the biggest we could do. It is very common knowledge in those cities who have developed their rivers, and you can go to the websites and do your own research, that all of those are very popular attractors to those communities, and they generate tremendous sales tax and property tax growth that help support your infrastructure, your police, your fire, your roads. That is how you grow this community, is to invest in it. This is the greatest opportunity for investment that we have had in years, and I would sure hate to see us turn that down and give back all of the commitments that are, when very successful business people are willing to contribute $117 million of their own money to this city, to this river project. I don't have that kind of money. They must know a good deal when they see it, and this is a good, solid plan. All we need is to do our part.
think this is one question that begs an answer that everybody is on everybody's mind. Mr. Kaiser has done well for himself by being a wise investor, and I'm sure many times that's called for patience. Is there any reason to believe that he's going to pull this money away and the other donors will if it's not passed at this time? Is there some reason why we would make this gift disappear?
I've heard him say directly that this investment needs to be made this year, or he's going to redirect his money to other causes, primarily his early childhood intervention program. Is that what it's called? So I don't think it was, if you know the man, he doesn't make threats. He just says, I have to invest my private foundation money, and if I can't put it in the river, I'll put it somewhere else. And I believe that's the case. So the other part of that is the last time the Tulsa voters voted down the river was 1979. So if you think our political leadership is going to bring it back in my lifetime, you must not know the political leaders that I know, because I don't think you'll see it again for a long, long time.
Yes. Do you have a comment? Would you like to add anything?
No.
Okay.
Move along.
But here, this begs an interesting question. Why couldn't the election be held or have been scheduled for the February presidential primary, saving taxpayers the cost of a special election?
Again, I think the motivation was partially we wanted it to be a single issue election, which probably was a mistake because the higher turnout elections have a tendency to be more successful in terms of a positive vote. You know, the decision was we wanted to do it this year, and so October the 9th was the date picked. We couldn't do September the 11th, which was the prior election date for the county.
Anything?
Got about
Okay.
10 seconds. Another compelling reason to do it now. Yeah, I could have saved us money by doing it in February or later. Of course, every month that we don't do this, we add a month of inflation to major projects, and that is a considerable amount of money. At the end of November or so, we will have Phase 3 completed, and we would begin the design process. You don't spend probably be $5-6 million for design of just the low water dams, depending on the percentage that architects and engineers would charge on a project of this magnitude and this complexity. That would exhaust what vision monies we do have, and we would not have monies to implement it. So it's one thing to have a plan sit on the shelf. It's another thing to have millions of dollars worth of detailed design sit on the shelf and not be able to build it. It would be irresponsible to do that.
Counselor?
Of course, it'll be years before we have the permits to put the dams in the Arkansas River, so a delay of 90 days now should have no effect on the outcome. The inflation argument is suspect. If the price of building a dam goes up because of inflation, then the receipts from sales tax will go up based on those same inflationary pressures. Historically, by that I mean over the last couple of hundred years, the cost of construction has gone down over time compared to the rest of the economy. Imagine trying to build the Hoover Dam in 1890. It would have bankrupted the federal government. Building the Hoover Dam we did, it was very affordable. Building the Hoover Dam today could be done in petty cash out of the defense budget. The longer you delay a construction project, the broader our tax base will be, and the smaller percentage the tax will take out of the GDP to build the same project.
What specific plan for Riverside Drive, 11th Street to 41st Street, is in this plan? There was an earlier plan approximately 2 years ago from a company in Dallas. Why are those plans changing? And what's happening on Riverside Drive West? I guess that would be the west
I
side of
understand that
Riverside Drive.
question.
Yeah, okay.
If I may answer that. In the Phase 1 vision plan of the Arkansas River Corridor plan, we had that vision plan was a very long-range plan, also included the redevelopment potentially of the refineries and all the industries on the west side into mixed use and new housing and so forth, probably 50 years, maybe more than that out. This is a long-term plan. Portions of it more immediate, the construction of the low water dams and so forth we need to do now. It's amazing when you lose your train of thought, isn't it? Yeah, I've been here too long. Oh yes, Riverside Drive West. It was a component of the vision plan. It would have been basically along 17th Street to 23rd Street. That's part of that long-range plan that once the refineries are developed, then you would build a transportation system on the west side that would connect that, and all of that mixed-use development. Riverside Drive East, the vision plan identified, the firm Carter Burgess was our consultant on that plan. What we proposed there in terms of Riverside Drive improvements were improving the intersections at every half mile, having signalized intersections, which we have now, but also installing traffic calming and pedestrian-friendly crossings at those intersections. This may happen as part of the public or the private amenities as we develop the gathering spots on the river in those areas, but it probably would be best done with a widening, if you will, not widening in lanes, but many of the lanes in Riverside Drive are 10, 11 feet wide, substandard, 12 foot is your current standard for lanes. It does need to be improved, and that's when you would build those intersection improvements to assist pedestrians and make them friendly as well. That's still a needed element of the plan. No, Riverside Drive there is nothing to improve Riverside Drive in this package. Riverside Drive, the current transportation plan for the region shows Riverside Drive adequate at 4 lanes as it is right now. It just needs some upgrading technically to have a safe median, to have the right 12-foot lane widths and turn lanes and so forth at those intersections. But also pedestrians have a difficult time crossing at mile intersections where we now have signals and traffic crosswalks and so forth. That's not an issue, but people won't walk a mile to do that, so they will try to cut across Riverside against traffic where there is no signalization. We want to put traffic calming at the half section miles. People will walk a quarter of a mile, get to a safe intersection, but not half a mile or more. No, that is not part of this plan. No. It's part of the master plan, but not part of this proposal.
It's, yeah, part of the master plan, but not this particular proposal. Okay, we're down to just a couple things, and I'm trying to combine and put this together and make this work, so just bear with me for a second. The question is, who actually owns the river? In terms of Native American treaties and so forth, there's a comment from one person about the Creek Nation pledging $5 million for improvements and so forth. And the question is, where are the discussions happening among the Indian nations, and do businesses have a right to be developing on the river, or are... Okay, good, I must be getting close. And so I will leave it at that. What discussions are happening with Native American communities, and how does that play into the final development of the river?
Current law suggests that the 42-mile corridor does not have any Indian rights associated with the riverbed other than riparian rights. So it isn't an issue. As everybody knows, the casino at 81st Street has committed to donate $5 million to this program.
I'll finish that off. The Cherokee, Chickasaw, and Choctaws won a Supreme Court decision many years ago establishing their rights to control the minerals, all of that exists, if you will, between the banks of the Arkansas from Three Rivers, Muskogee basically, down to even down to Arkansas. The Creek Nation has not established that. And in fact, they are on our advisory committee. They contributed their time to helping us develop the corridor master plan. They are firmly for this plan, and they should be, as it would improve their investment. The ownership of the river in Oklahoma just generally follows, if you own the river bank, then you generally own to the center of the river. It's my understanding that in this area, the casino, the Creek Nation, the Muskogee Creek Nation, also owns not only portions on the east bank where the casino is, but across the river on the west bank. So they would own to the center of the river by just owning the riparian rights like every other landowner would have. They do not have, quote, Indian rights by treaty in this area of the river.
They have properly stated the law.
Great. As a follow-up, again, with the Creek Nation and the pledge of $5 million, as a tribal member, this made me ask if the money had been appropriated. According to my National Council representative, no money has actually been appropriated. What guarantee is there in this pledge that the money will be paid?
It's simply a pledge at this point.
Okay.
It's just a pledge. So there isn't a guarantee. In that particular case, that's all it is a pledge.
Even though I think all of our panelists have addressed this in one way or another at some level, we're going to wrap it up with the final question I have here, which is to put on your rose-colored glasses and to look at the Arkansas River, 42 miles of it, and tell each of you, take a couple of minutes, to discuss how you would like to see the river developed, what ways you would use, what incentives would need to be provided, what taxes would need to be leveraged, et cetera, to truly make the river what you think it should be for Tulsa's future going forward.
Which end do you want to start on?
We'll start with you, Counselor.
I'm in the minority position. I really like the channels. I like the idea of a tall hydroelectric dam at about 18th Riverside Drive. I understand there were some issues with land acquisition and how that would affect the upstream levee system that make it problematic to move forward. This plan, the NCOG plan on steroids or the Kaiser plan, I think is a great plan. I think it should be implemented. I know that it can be implemented without a tax increase. I don't dispute the value of this proposal in terms of it improving our economy and doing good things for Tulsa. What I don't like is the tax increase that will erode the Tulsa tax base. In a perfect world, 10 years from now, there'd be a low water dam upstream that would trickle water into the Zinc Basin. The Zinc Basin would be a much deeper lake than it is now with the silt removed, and there'd be a dam downstream close to Jenks. There'd be a channeling of the water flow in the center of the river that would attract the whitewater rafting, and it would all be done without a tax increase. And once these projects were paid for, we could kill the tax and get on with our economy. This plan is doable. This plan is a good plan, and despite my opposition to the tax increase, I have a great deal of respect for the people that came up with it, and I spent a great deal of time working on it. And despite the exchange of barbs, I have a great deal of respect for Mr. Piercy.
I, too, have a great deal of respect for the time and effort that has gone into trying to find workable improvements for the river. My vision, I guess I would say, for the 42-mile stretch of it wouldn't be really terribly different than what it is now. I do like the green wildlife habitat areas that we have. I do like some of the proposed green space that they have put into the plan. I would like to have more than one place to go along Riverside Drive in Tulsa to sit and enjoy a sunset and have a cold drink or something to eat. That's kind of my vision for it. I think we really do need to study, though, how much we already have in the way of funds which could pay for the plan as they are presenting. And I think we need more than another 3 weeks to take a look at this plan, is my personal opinion.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to think that I can live 20 years longer to see the greatest urban park development outside of Central Park in New York City, and I think that's what this river has the potential to be. I, like John, see the plan as the best that we could hope for at this time. Unlike him, I would say that it can't be done in the short term without public dollars, and I would hope and expect that this community will support the river on October the 9th and set a positive tone for this community that can carry us forward for the next 20 years.
Well, I think these three have pretty much described my vision, since I helped develop this plan, and that basically describes the low water dams and the flow management or the water resources management that they describe. My biggest dream is that it happen quickly. We have momentum now. We have support of the Corps of Engineers. We need to keep this going forward. And that rather than waiting 20 years, my vision is that we see this finished in less than 7. And that's very feasible. We have designed it that way. I have no doubt in my mind and professional career that this can be permitted and constructed in that period of time as proposed. It would create one of the greatest park systems, but more than that, it would also be an attractor for this area in doing so. It will attract property value growth. It will attract young people who want to be in a community that invests in itself for neat things, which we haven't done in ages. This is time to develop the river. There will be no better time to develop the river, and this plan is very feasible. It is not the channels. It is not iconic as the channels, but it helps the environment. It helps the impression that the outside has for the Tulsa area. And as I have spoken in Oklahoma City about our river plan a number of times, they want us to develop our river. It helps Oklahoma to be another attractor, to attract people back to Oklahoma. I think they would be very disappointed in us if we still do nothing to develop this river. We have a great plan, we have a great opportunity, and we just need to be investing in ourselves, and that's what this is about. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of our panelists this evening. Please join me in thanking them, and thank you for your time. Thank you for your offer. I'd like to bring Sarah Kobos back up for a couple of final brief remarks.
I just want to thank you all for coming and participating. I think that TulsaNow has provided a unique forum where we showed both sides. We noticed there were a lot of pro rallies, there were a lot of con rallies. This may be the only one that brought everyone together. I cannot thank our speakers enough, and thank you all for coming. Video of this event is going to be available through a link off our website, which is tulsanow.org, in about a couple days. Thank you so much.